Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Tech Talk Weekly. In today's episode, we are going to talk about a day in the life of an IT auditor. The reason we're talking about this today is because this is a topic that I get questions about all the time. Everybody wants to know, what is a day like in the life of an IT auditor? And I haven't addressed this before because there are many nuances to what a day in the life of an IT auditor would look like. But today I've decided to address this topic so that people can get an insight into what IT auditors do. So let's get started. The first thing I want to share is that every day is not the same. And this is why I've really not talked about this topic before. The reality is that you wouldn't necessarily be doing the same thing every single day, right? You could be doing a variety of things depending on what role you have, what phase your project is in, and things like that. So what I'm going to do instead is talk about the key responsibilities of an IT auditor that would shape what the IT auditor would do on a daily basis. Okay? So before I go into the key responsibilities, I want to first talk about the key phases of an IT audit. If you've watched some of my other videos or maybe attended some of my workshops, we talk about the phases of an IT audit. And in summary, there are three key phases. We have the planning phase, the fieldwork phase, and the reporting phase. It's important to know this because the phase you're in an IT audit will determine what you're doing on a daily basis during that period of time. Once you move to another phase, then the activities and your responsibilities might change. So I just want you to remember that the phases of an IT audit, which are planning, fieldwork, and reporting, will to a large extent determine what you will do on a daily basis. Okay? So now let's talk about the key responsibilities of an IT auditor. So let's talk about the key responsibilities of an IT auditor. One of the key things that an IT auditor will probably do is have meetings. There are typically a lot of meetings, so you need to be comfortable with meetings, okay? And there are different types of meetings. You can have walkthrough meetings. I have a video on this channel that talks about walkthroughs. You can have status update meetings where you're providing a status update on your audit to either your management or to the client or the department that you're auditing. You can have meetings with the control owners to talk about any issues you identified during your testing that might need some clarity. So in general, there are quite a few meetings where you're trying to get clarity on your testing items or share the results of your testing or maybe share your reporting and your status reports like I mentioned. So get comfortable with having meetings because this will probably be on your calendar quite a bit. Another key responsibility is testing, okay? So when it comes to performing IT audits, especially if you're an associate or a senior associate, you are going to be doing a lot of control testing. And again, for those of you that might have attended my prior workshops, we talk about testing and we go into practical examples. And the reason for that is because that's a big part of what auditors do. So as an associate or a senior associate, you will be doing a lot of control testing. So you have to be very comfortable with your knowledge of controls as well as how to test those controls. Another key responsibility that you'll have is documenting results. So after you've had meetings, maybe like your walkthroughs, and you've tested, your audit work needs to be documented because your documentation is going to show what it is that you've actually done in the field. So documenting your test results, putting together your work papers, and completing the reports will also take a large chunk of your time because all that work that you've done needs to be documented and presented in a format that's acceptable to management. Another thing that you would also be doing is potentially retesting. So sometimes you've tested and there were issues identified that were fixed, right? So now you have to retest them. Or maybe you tested something and you thought there was an issue, but the information from the client was a little bit off. And so now they have new evidence to show you. Now you have to retest again. So not only are you testing, sometimes you may need to retest based on the situation around the control that you're testing. And finally, another thing that you'll be responsible for is engagement management. So when you think about audits, they are essentially projects, right? An audit is a project that has a beginning and an end, right? So when it comes to auditor responsibilities, overall, you'll be managing the audit engagement, because you want to make sure that it successfully concludes. So engagement management is a key piece. If you're a junior auditor, you might not do a lot of that because the senior might be responsible for doing more of that engagement management piece. Okay. So let's summarize what you've learned here today. Some of the key responsibilities of an IT auditor would be having meetings, testing, documenting results, retesting as needed, and engagement management. So what's going to determine what you do every single day? It's going to depend on the phase of the audit that you're in and also on your role. Let's say either you're a junior auditor or a senior auditor. Okay. So I do want to wrap up by saying that the IT audit field has limitless opportunities. And I want to tackle this from two perspectives. The first part is that IT audit projects can vary. So you're not necessarily doing the same project every time. So you might be doing SOX testing, or you might do SSAE 18 reviews, or you might participate in PCI reviews. You could also be performing audits for post-implementation or application reviews, database reviews. There are just so many different types of audits that you can perform. So that means depending on your knowledge and the skills that you have and the field that you're working in, whether you're an internal auditor or external auditor, you might get to see different types of audits. So that's very interesting. It's very dynamic and it's not boring. And it means that you're growing in your field. The other piece is that as you're getting exposure to the different departments in an organization, you're having the meetings and doing your testing, you're actually getting a good amount of visibility into those areas. So if you choose to stop being an IT auditor, you might choose to go into one of those fields if you have the requisite transferable skills. Sometimes I've seen IT auditors that have gone on to be in the program management space. Some have gone on to be in the finance space if they had a prior background in finance or something like that. The idea there is by getting exposure to these different fields, and if you have the right transferable skills, you can actually move out of IT audit and into the other business departments where you might have a longer term goal. So that just shows that IT audits have a lot of opportunities that you can take a hold of. Okay. So to summarize everything we've talked about here today, a day in the life of an IT auditor is not very typical. It's going to depend on your role. It's going to depend on the phase of the IT audit that you're in, and it's going to depend on what you need to get done for that day. We've talked about the things that you would potentially do every day, and also we've talked about how doing all those things give you additional opportunities within an organization or outside an organization to grow your career. Okay. So thanks for joining me today on this episode of Tech Talk Weekly. If you found this helpful, leave a comment below and let me know if you have any questions as well. Have a great day and see you on the next episode of Tech Talk Weekly. Thank you.